Commander Zeltos stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars pass by through the wide viewing screen. His silver skin reflected the soft blue lights of the control panels around him. He had done this 247 times before. Every single time ended the same way. Surrender. Peace. Order restored to another chaotic world. The Vrix Collective had perfected the art of conquest over 1,000 years. They did not need armies. They did not need ground troops or massive battles. They had something better. Gravitational manipulation technology that could disable any defense system, any weapon, any ship within hours of arriving at a planet. It was elegant. It was clean. It was effortless. Zeltos walked slowly past the crew stations where his officers monitored their instruments. They barely looked up. This mission was routine. Just another primitive species that needed guidance. Just another world that would see the wisdom of joining the collective without bloodshed. The target was called Earth, a small blue and green planet in an unremarkable star system. The species there called themselves humans. The scout reports showed they had barely left their homeworld. A few colonies on nearby planets and moons, simple fusion drives for their ships, kinetic weapons that threw pieces of metal through space, primitive lasers, nothing that could threaten a Vrix cruiser. "Commander, we are approaching the outer system," his navigation officer reported. Her voice was calm, almost bored. "Excellent. Begin standard scanning procedures." "Locate their military assets and government centers," Zeltos ordered. The process was always the same. Scan the system. Identify who was in charge. Send the message. Wait for surrender. Sometimes it took hours, sometimes days, but it always ended the same way. The Vrix had brought order to 200 civilizations. Earth would be 201. The communications officer turned toward him. "Commander, scans complete. They have approximately 100 military vessels. Most are stationed near their homeworld. Defense platforms around the planet and its moon. Nothing unusual," Zeltos nodded. "Prepare the standard message. Translate it into their dominant languages." He had written this message himself decades ago. It had worked every single time. The words were simple, direct. There was no threat in them, only truth. Submit and live in peace. Resist and face consequences no military could withstand. Every species chose peace. Every species saw the logic. The message was sent across all human communication channels. Radio waves, digital transmissions, everything. The message was simple. The Vrix Collective had arrived. Humanity could choose to join peacefully or face subjugation. They had 48 hours to respond. Zeltos returned to his private quarters to wait. He looked at the collection of artifacts on his walls. Each one came from a species that had joined the collective. Gifts given after peaceful integration. A crystal from the Nethori, a woven tapestry from the Quillen, a meditation stone from the Vex. Soon he would have something from Earth, perhaps one of their primitive art pieces. The hours passed slowly. Zeltos reviewed the scout reports about humans. They were interesting in some ways, aggressive, territorial. They had fought many wars among themselves. But that was normal for young species. They would learn that war was unnecessary once they saw the power of the collective. The 48-hour deadline approached. Zeltos returned to the bridge. His crew was ready. The gravitational disruptors were charged. The fleet of 3 cruisers was in position. Everything was prepared for a smooth integration. "Commander, we are receiving a response from Earth," the communications officer said. "Display it," Zeltos ordered. The message appeared on the main screen. It was short. Unusually short. Most species sent long messages. They explained their concerns. They asked questions. They negotiated. But the human message was only one word. No. Zeltos blinked his large dark eyes. He read the word again. No, that was all. "Just no. Is this their complete message?" he asked. "Yes, Commander. That is everything they sent." A strange feeling moved through Zeltos' body. It took him a moment to recognize it. Amusement. He was amused. How refreshing. A species with spirit. They would learn quickly enough. They always did. Send a follow-up message. Explain the consequences of resistance. "Give them 12 more hours," Zeltos said. 12 hours later, the response came back. The same single word. No. Now Zeltos felt something else. Curiosity. What made these humans so confident? Did they have a secret weapon the scouts had missed? Some hidden technology? It did not matter. The Vrik's gravitational technology could defeat anything. Begin the approach. Standard subjugation pattern. Disable their defense platforms first. Then their military vessels. Make it clear that resistance is pointless, Zelthos commanded. The 3 Vrik's cruisers moved forward through the solar system. They were beautiful ships, sleek and curved like drops of liquid metal. They moved with grace and speed that no other species could match. The gravitational drives bent space around them, making them nearly impossible to target. As they approached Earth's moon, the sensors began picking up more detailed readings. The human defense platforms were online. Their ships were moving into defensive positions. Everything was predictable. Everything was normal. Then the sensor officer's voice cut through the quiet bridge. There was something different in her tone. Uncertainty. Commander, we are detecting something large behind the moon. Very large. Zelthos moved to her station. Show me. The display showed a massive object emerging from the moon's shadow. It was enormous, larger than anything in the Vrik's database, larger than any ship should be. It was not graceful or elegant. It looked like a floating fortress, dark metal covered in armor plating. Weapon ports dotted every surface. It moved slowly but with purpose. What is that? Zelthos whispered. The communications officer spoke up. We are receiving a transmission from that vessel. They are calling it the TCS Indomitable, a Dreadnought-class warship. Zelthos stared at the massive ship on his screen. For the first time in his long career, he felt something he had not felt in centuries. Doubt. But no, they were the Vrik's collective. They had never been defeated. This was just a larger target. The outcome would be the same. All ships prepare to engage. This changes nothing, he said. But as he watched the dreadnought turn to face his fleet, Zelthos wondered if he was telling the truth. Captain Elena Vasquez stood in the command center of the TCS Indomitable and watched the alien ships approach. Her hands rested calmly on the tactical display table in front of her. Around her, 200 crew members worked at their stations. The air smelled of recycled oxygen and metal. The low hum of the fusion cores vibrated through the deck plates under her boots. She had waited 40 years for this moment. 40 years of construction, 40 years of preparation, 40 years of training for a day that everyone hoped would never come. But Elena had always known it would. Humanity had looked at the stars and understood a simple truth. If life existed out there, some of it would be hostile. Captain, the alien vessels are in weapons range, her tactical officer reported. Hold position. Let them make the first move, Elena said. The Indomitable was not like the alien ships. It was not fast or graceful. It was a brutal hammer made of steel and determination, 5 kilometers long, 2 kilometers wide, armor plating 3 meters thick in some places, 40 fusion reactors providing power to redundant systems, hundreds of weapons covering every angle. It had taken the resources of every nation on Earth to build this one ship. Elena remembered the debates in the United Nations. Some wanted to build a fleet of smaller ships. Others wanted to focus on defense platforms. But the engineers and military strategists had agreed on one thing. If humanity encountered hostile aliens with superior technology, they needed something that could take damage and keep fighting. Something that could not be easily destroyed. They needed a dreadnought. Captain, the alien ships are targeting us with some kind of energy beam. Analyzing now, the science officer called out. Elena felt the ship shudder slightly. Lights flickered. Then the backup systems kicked in. Then the backup systems for the backup systems. The Indomitable had been designed by people who understood that single points of failure were fatal. Gravitational manipulation technology, the science officer said. They are trying to disable our power systems. How are our reactors responding? Elena asked. Reactor 1 is offline. Reactors 2 through 40 are compensating. Power levels at 97%. Elena allowed herself a small smile. The aliens were trying to turn off the lights. But the Indomitable had 40 light switches. Good luck turning them all off. All weapons prepare to fire. Target the lead vessel. Full spread, Elena ordered. The weapons officer's fingers moved across his controls. Railguns locked. Missile tubes loaded. Laser batteries charged. Plasma cannons ready. Captain, all weapons are hot. This was humanity's answer to superior alien technology. If they could not match the aliens in any single area, they would be good enough in every area. The Indomitable carried every weapon system humanity had ever invented. Kinetic weapons, explosives, energy weapons, chemical weapons, nuclear weapons, everything. Fire, Elena said calmly. The Dreadnought unleashed hell. Railguns threw tungsten rods at a fraction of the speed of light. Missiles streaked across space, trailing fire. Laser beams cut through the darkness. Plasma bolts burned bright white. The vacuum of space filled with death moving in every direction toward the alien fleet. On the bridge of his cruiser, Commander Zelthos watched the incoming fire with shock. No species had ever attacked them before. No species had ever dared. The defensive fields around his ships activated automatically. Most of the projectiles deflected away. Most, but not all. A railgun slug punched through the shields of his second cruiser. It tore through the hull like paper. Atmosphere vented into space. Alarms screamed across the Vrix fleet channels. One of his ships was hurt. Actually hurt, return fire. Disable that ship, Zelthos shouted. The Vrix cruisers fired their gravitational beams at full power. The Dreadnought shuddered under the assault. More reactors went offline. Systems failed. But the ship kept coming. It did not dodge. It did not retreat. It flew straight toward them like an angry god. They are not stopping, his navigation officer screamed. Elena watched the tactical display as the Indomitable crashed through the alien formation. Her ship rocked from impacts. Hull breaches were reported on 7 decks. Reactor 19 exploded. 200 people died in an instant. But the ship kept fighting. That was what it was built to do. Continue firing. Target the damaged vessel. Put it down, Elena commanded. More weapons fire poured from the Dreadnought. The damaged alien cruiser tried to retreat. It was too slow. A plasma bolt melted through its main drive. Nuclear missiles slammed into its hull. For a moment it glowed bright white. Then it exploded. On Zelthos's bridge, the crew members stood frozen in shock. One of their ships was gone, destroyed. That was impossible. The Vrix Collective did not lose ships. They did not lose battles. This could not be happening. Commander, we need to withdraw, his second officer said. Zelthos wanted to argue. Wanted to fight. But he looked at the human ship and saw something terrifying. It was still coming. Even damaged, even hurt, it was still attacking. The humans were not fighting to win. They were fighting to make sure the Vrix lost. There was a difference. All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance. Call for reinforcements, Zelthos ordered. The Vrix cruisers turned and accelerated away. They were faster than the Dreadnought. They pulled out of range quickly. But Elena did not chase them far. She had made her point. Cease fire. Begin damage assessment, Elena ordered. Reports flooded in. 1,500 casualties. 8 reactors destroyed. 40% of the armor compromised. Dozens of systems offline. But the Indomitable was still operational. Still capable of fighting. Elena activated the communication system. Her message would go to the alien fleet, to Earth, to any other species listening in this region of space. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Terran Dreadnought Indomitable. You came to our home and demanded surrender. You thought we were weak because we are young. You thought we were helpless because our technology is simple. You were wrong. We did not build this ship to conquer. We built it to make sure conquest would cost more than any enemy was willing to pay. If you want Earth, come and take it. But know this. We will make you earn every meter. We will make you pay for every life. And when you finally win, if you win, you will remember forever what it cost you. The choice is yours, the message ended. Elena looked around her bridge at the surviving crew. They were bloody. They were exhausted. They were scared. But not one of them looked defeated. Get me a damage report. We have 12 hours before they come back with more ships. We need to be ready, Elena said. Across the solar system, the message was received. On Earth, people celebrated. Their dreadnought had bloodied the aliens, had shown them that humanity would not go quietly. In the Vrix fleet, Commander Zelthos listened to the message and felt something he had never felt before. Fear. Not fear of death. Fear that his entire civilization had been living a lie, and this one human ship had just exposed it. Commander Zelthos sat alone in his quarters staring at the wall. The destroyed cruiser had carried 8,000 Vrix, 8,000 lives lost in less than an hour. In 1,000 years of conquest, the collective had lost fewer than 10,000 total casualties. This one battle had nearly matched that number. One battle, one human ship. He pulled up the battle recordings and watched them again. The human dreadnought had not fought like anything in the Vrix database. It did not try to outmaneuver them. It did not rely on superior shields or weapons. It simply took the damage and kept fighting, like a wild animal that would not stop even when wounded. There was a message in that, a terrible message. The humans had built that ship knowing it would be hurt, knowing people would die. They had accepted those costs before the battle even started. The Vrix had forgotten what that kind of determination looked like. They had forgotten because they had never needed to remember. His communicator chimed. It was the High Council calling from the collective homeworld. Zeltos answered. 5 faces appeared on the screen. The council members looked at him with expressions he could not read. Disappointment? Anger? Confusion? Commander Zeltos, explain what happened, Council Leader Marveth said. Zeltos straightened himself. The humans possess a warship that our gravitational technology cannot fully disable. It has redundant systems beyond anything we have encountered. When we attempted subjugation, they attacked immediately and destroyed the cruiser Infinite Dawn. One ship did this? Another council member asked. Yes, council member. But it is not just the ship. The humans fight differently. They accept casualties that would break other species. They are willing to trade losses that we cannot match. Marveth's skin shifted to a deeper silver, a sign of irritation. Then we will send more ships. Numbers will overcome their one vessel. Assemble an armada. 50 cruisers. That will be enough to crush any resistance. Zeltos felt cold inside. Council leader, I recommend we negotiate instead. These humans negotiate? Marveth interrupted. We are the Vrix Collective. We do not negotiate with primitives. We bring order. Assemble the armada, Commander. Show these humans what happens when they refuse our generous offer. The communication ended. Zeltos sat in the darkness of his quarters. 50 ships. That should be enough. It had to be enough. But something deep inside him whispered that the council did not understand what they were facing. On the Indomitable, Captain Elena Vasquez walked through the damaged sections of her ship. Medical teams were still pulling bodies from collapsed compartments. Engineers worked desperately to repair critical systems. The ship looked like it had flown through hell. Because it had. Captain, we have new intelligence, her first officer said, catching up to her in the corridor. Elena stopped walking. What is it? Our listening post detected massive Vrix fleet movements. At least 50 ships heading this way. They will arrive in 4 days. Elena closed her eyes. 50 ships. The Indomitable could fight 3, maybe 5 if they got lucky. But 50? That was impossible, even for humanity's greatest warship. Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them what is coming. Tell them. Elena paused. What could she tell them? That they had won one battle but were about to lose the war? Tell them we hurt the aliens. Tell them we proved they can bleed. Tell them that matters, Elena said. But Elena knew proving the aliens could bleed was not the same as winning. The Indomitable needed help. They needed a plan. They needed something the Vrix would not expect. She made her way to the communication center. There was something she needed to do. Something risky. Something that might save them or doom them faster. Open a wideband transmission. Maximum range. All frequencies, Elena ordered. Captain, that will reveal our position to everyone in this region of space, the communications officer warned. I know. Do it, the channel opened. Elena took a breath and spoke. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Terran Dreadnought Indomitable. My message is for any species within range who can hear this. The Vrix Collective came to our world and demanded surrender. We refused. We fought them. We bled them. We destroyed one of their ships. And now they are sending 50 more to crush us. We are going to fight them. We are going to make them pay for every meter they take. But I want everyone listening to know something. The Vrix can be beaten. They can lose. They can die. They are not invincible. If you are listening, if you are one of their subjects, if you dream of freedom, know this, resistance is possible. And if we fall, let it be known that humanity died free rather than lived in chains. The message transmitted across dozens of light years. Elena did not know if anyone would hear it, did not know if it would matter. But she had to try. Far across the galaxy, the message was received. On worlds conquered by the Vrix, people heard it. The Quillen heard it. The Nithori heard it. The Vex heard it. Species who had surrendered without fighting heard about a species that chose to fight, and something stirred in them. Something that had been sleeping for a long time. Hope. In the Vrix Fleet Assembly Point, Commander Zeltos supervised the loading of supplies onto 50 warships. It was the largest military operation the collective had mounted in 500 years. Everything about it felt wrong. The Vrix were not warriors. They were administrators, peacekeepers. They had forgotten how to wage real war. He looked at the ships around him. Beautiful vessels designed for speed and technology. But were they designed for battle? True battle against an enemy that would not surrender? He did not know. A communication came from one of his officers. "Commander, we are detecting unusual activity in several collective-controlled systems. Ships going offline. Communications disrupted. It appears to be coordinated somehow." Zelthos felt something twist in his chest. The human message. It had done more than just announce their defiance. It had planted a seed, an idea, the idea that the Vrix could lose. Increase security in all controlled systems. Double the garrison fleets, Zelthos ordered. But even as he gave the command, he knew it was too late. The humans had already won something more important than a battle. They had won the right to be heard. And in being heard, they had reminded the galaxy that there were worse things than dying. Living without dignity. Living without hope. Living as slaves. The Armada finished assembling. 50 ships prepared to jump to the Sol system. Zelthos stood on his bridge and looked at the overwhelming force around him. It should be enough. The numbers were clear, but numbers had never fought an idea before. And Zelthos was beginning to understand that was exactly what humanity represented, an idea that would not die no matter how many ships you sent against it. The Vrix Armada emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. 50 warships arranged in perfect formation. Commander Zelthos looked at the tactical display and felt the weight of what was about to happen. This would not be a peaceful integration. This would be war. Begin system scan. Locate the human dreadnought, Zelthos commanded. The sensors swept through space. There. The massive human ship waited near Earth, just as before. But something was different. The dreadnought was not alone anymore. "Commander, we are detecting multiple smaller human vessels. Hundreds of them. They are emerging from asteroid fields, from behind moons, from orbital stations around the outer planets," his sensor officer reported. Zelthos leaned forward. The display showed human ships everywhere. None of them were as large as the dreadnought. Most were tiny compared to Vrix cruisers, but there were so many of them. "Like insects swarming from a nest, what are those ships?" Zelthos asked. "Variety of classes, Commander. Frigates, destroyers, corvettes, even civilian vessels that have been armed. The humans have mobilized everything that can fly and carry a weapon." Zelthos understood then. The dreadnought had never been meant to win alone. It had been meant to buy time. Time for humanity to prepare. Time to arm every ship they had. Time to turn their entire solar system into a fortress, all ships battle formation. "Prepare for engagement," Zelthos ordered. The human fleet began moving. But they did not charge forward in a straight line like the dreadnought had. They moved in groups, small packs of ships working together. They split apart and reformed. It was chaotic but somehow coordinated. Captain Elena Vasquez watched the alien armada from the bridge of the Indomitable. 50 ships, more than enough to destroy her vessel and everything else in the system. But humanity had learned something important. When you cannot win with strength, you win with stubbornness. "All fleet commanders, this is Vasquez. Execute battle plan Thermopylae. Make them fight for every meter. Make them earn it," Elena transmitted. The battle plan was named after an ancient Earth battle where a small force had held back a massive army. The humans could not win a direct fight, but they could bleed the aliens. They could make victory so costly that it stopped being victory. The first wave of human ships attacked from 3 directions. Small frigates loaded with missiles. They fired everything they had and then retreated behind the dreadnought. The Vrix fleet's defenses intercepted most of the missiles, but not all. One Vrix cruiser took damage to its engines. "They are using hit-and-run tactics," Zelthos' tactical officer said. "Then we pursue and destroy them," Zelthos replied. But when the Vrix ships moved to chase the retreating humans, another wave attacked from a different angle. Then another. The humans were everywhere at once. They never stayed to fight. They just attacked and withdrew. Attack and withdraw. The Indomitable stayed at the center of it all. A massive fortress that the smaller human ships could rally around. When Vrix ships got too close, the dreadnought would fire its overwhelming weapons and drive them back. Hours passed. The battle became a grinding chaos. The Vrix killed many human ships, But for every human ship destroyed, 2 more seemed to appear, and every time the Vrix tried to push forward, they paid for it. Commander, we have lost 6 cruisers. Multiple ships are damaged and requesting to withdraw for repairs, an officer reported. 6 ships lost, more than the collective had lost in centuries. Zeltos looked at the tactical display. They were winning. The human fleet was taking terrible casualties, but it did not feel like winning. It felt like drowning. Elena watched her tactical display through tears she would not let fall. 38 human ships destroyed. Over 15,000 people dead. The names scrolled past too fast to read, but she read them anyway. Every single one. These people had died because she had told them to fight. Captain, enemy formation is breaking down. They're having trouble coordinating, her tactical officer said. Elena saw it too. The Vrix were not used to this kind of battle. They had trained for easy victories, for subjugation operations, not for desperate struggles against enemies who would not stop. The alien formation was becoming confused. Ships were interfering with each other. Tell all commanders to press the attack. Target the ships that are pulling back for repairs. Don't let them recover, Elena ordered. The human fleet surged forward. It was a desperate move, but desperation was all they had left. On Zeltos's bridge, alarms were screaming. Too many ships needed help. Too many systems were failing. The humans were supposed to break. Every species broke when casualties got high enough. But the humans just kept coming. Commander, we are receiving multiple jump signatures. New ships entering the system, the sensor officer called out. Zeltos felt his hope rise. Reinforcements from the collective? But then he looked at the sensor data and his hope turned to ash. The new ships were not Vrix. They were Quillen, Nithori, Vex, a dozen other species. All of them former subjects of the collective. All of them had heard the human message. All of them had decided to fight. This is Quillen Defense Fleet, we stand with humanity, a transmission announced. Nithori ships incoming. Where humans fight, we fight, another voice said. Zeltos watched as the tactical situation collapsed. His armada was suddenly facing not just humans but a coalition. Dozens of species who had been watching, who had been inspired by human resistance. The carefully planned operation had become a nightmare. Commander, orders? His second officer asked. Zeltos looked at the display. They could still win. The numbers still favored the Vrix, but the cost would be everything. Dozens of ships destroyed, tens of thousands dead, and even if they won, the rest of the galaxy would rise up. The human message had spread too far. Open a channel to the human dreadnought, Zeltos said quietly. Commander? His officer asked in shock. Do it. Now. A moment later, the human captain's face appeared on screen. She looked exhausted, hurt but not defeated, never defeated. This is Commander Zeltos of the Vrix Collective. I am authorized to offer terms. Elena stared at the alien commander. Terms? A ceasefire. The collective will withdraw from your system. We will acknowledge human independence. In exchange, you cease hostilities and allow our damaged ships to withdraw safely. Elena could barely believe what she was hearing. They had done it. They had actually done it. Not through strength. Not through superior technology. Through sheer unwillingness to lose. What about the other species? The ones who came to help us? Elena asked. Zeltos was quiet for a moment. The council will negotiate with them individually. But the age of automatic subjugation is over. You have made sure of that. Elena looked around her bridge, at her surviving crew, at the tactical display showing how few human ships were left. They had won. But the cost had been terrible. Ceasefire accepted. But Commander, understand something. If you ever come back to our system with hostile intent, we will fight again. And next time we will be even more ready. Zeltos nodded slowly. I believe you, Captain. That is why we will not return. The transmission ended. The Vrix fleet began to withdraw. The battle was over. Humanity had survived. The galaxy had changed forever. 5 years after the Battle of Sol, Captain Elena Vasquez stood on an observation deck looking at the Indomitable. The great dreadnought hung in orbit around Earth, its hull still scarred from that terrible day. It had been turned into a museum, a monument, a reminder of what humanity had paid for freedom. Elena was older now. Gray streaked through her dark hair. Lines marked her face from years of carrying the weight of 40,000 names. That was how many humans had died in the battle. 40,000 people who had trusted her leadership. She remembered every single name. She would never forget them. Behind her, footsteps approached. Elena did not turn around. She knew who it was. Only one person had clearance to meet her here, Captain Vasquez, Commander Zelthos said. Elena finally turned to face him. The Vrix commander looked different somehow. His silver skin seemed duller. His large eyes carried a sadness that had not been there before. "I am not a captain anymore," Elena said. "I retired after the battle." "To me, you will always be the captain of that ship," Zelthos replied, gesturing toward the Indomitable. They stood in silence for a moment, two former enemies looking at the vessel that had changed everything. "Why did you come here?" Elena asked. "To understand," Zelthos said. "The collective has sent me as an ambassador. To learn about humanity. To make sure what happened never happens again. But truthfully, I came for myself. I need to understand how you did it." Elena raised an eyebrow. "We built a big ship and refused to surrender. It is not complicated." "No," Zelthos said firmly. "It is more than that. We had superior technology. We had more ships. We should have won. But you changed the definition of winning. You made victory cost more than we were willing to pay. How did you know we would stop? How did you know we would not simply destroy your entire planet?" Elena turned back to look at the dreadnought. "We did not know, we hoped. We believed that any species advanced enough to cross the stars would have some concept of proportional response. That you would realize destroying Earth would cost you more than it was worth. But if we had not stopped, if we had continued," Zelthos pressed, "then we would have made you pay for every human life. We would have made you remember forever what it cost to break us. And maybe, just maybe, the guilt would have destroyed you from the inside," Elena said quietly. Zelthos felt something twist inside him. She was right. If the Vrix had destroyed Earth, the collective would have torn itself apart. 50 species watching them commit genocide would have risen up. The collective would have drowned in the blood they spilled. "You did not just defeat us," Zelthos said. "You showed us we were already defeated. By our own arrogance. By our own complacency. We thought conquest without effort made us superior, but it just made us weak." Elena nodded. "We prepared for you. For someone like you. We knew eventually someone would come and we would need to fight. So we built the Indomitable, not because we wanted war, but because we understood that the only way to avoid war was to be too costly to conquer." "And now?" Zelthos asked. "What does humanity do now?" Elena gestured toward the viewport. Beyond the Indomitable, other ships moved through space. Human ships flying alongside Quillan vessels, Nathori transports, Vex science ships. The galaxy had changed. Old alliances had broken. New ones had formed. "We teach," Elena said. "Species come to us now. They want to learn our military tactics, our defensive strategies, how to build ships that can take damage and keep fighting. We share everything. We make sure no species ever has to face what we faced alone." Zelthos was quiet for a long moment. "The collective is shrinking. 30 species have declared independence in the last 5 years. The Council says it is your fault, that you destabilized the galaxy." "And what do you say?" Elena asked. "I say the galaxy was already unstable. We just did not see it. A peace maintained only by overwhelming force is not real peace. It is just delayed war. You taught us that." Elena looked at the old Vrix commander. There was genuine wisdom in his words. Real understanding. The war had changed him too. "Will the collective survive?" Elena asked. Zelthos made a gesture that might have been a shrug. "Perhaps, but not in the same form. We are negotiating with our former subjects. Actual negotiations, equal partnerships. It is strange for us, difficult but necessary." "That is progress," Elena said. "Progress," Zelthos repeated. "Yes, expensive progress. 40,000 humans died to teach us a lesson we should have learned centuries ago. Was it worth it?" Elena felt the familiar pain in her chest. The weight of all those names. "You are asking the wrong person. I dream about them every night. Every single one. But would I do it again? Yes, because those 40,000 died free. And because of them, billions more will live free. That has to mean something." Zelthos nodded slowly. He understood. The cost was terrible, but the alternative had been worse. "I should go," Zelthos said. "Thank you for meeting with me." "Commander," Elena called as he turned to leave. "For what it is worth, I am glad it was you. Glad you understood. Glad you stopped." "As am I," Zelthos replied. "As am I." 20 years later, in a classroom on a Vrix colony world, a young student raised her hand. Teacher Zelthos, why did we stop conquering other species? The old Vrix, now retired from military service and teaching history, looked at his students. On the wall behind him was an image of the TCS Indomitable, battle-scarred and defiant. Because we learned an important lesson, Zelthos said. We learned that conquering without effort is not real conquest. It is just coercion, and coercion only lasts until someone is willing to pay the price to resist. But we were stronger. The student insisted. We had better technology, did we? Zelthos asked. The humans had something we did not. They had the willingness to accept terrible costs for something they believed in. That is a kind of strength we had forgotten existed. When we encountered them, they reminded us that strength is not just about technology or firepower. It is about determination, about refusing to accept defeat even when defeat seems certain. Another student spoke up. Did you hate them? The humans? Zelthos thought about Captain Vasquez, about the Indomitable, about the 40,000 humans who had died fighting, about the galaxy they had changed. No, he said finally. I respected them. I still do. They taught us something invaluable. They taught us that victory means nothing if it is too easy, that peace means nothing if it is forced, and that sometimes the species you think is primitive is actually teaching you lessons your civilization forgot long ago. The classroom was quiet. The students looked at the image of the Dreadnought, that massive, brutal, beautiful ship that had changed history. Teacher Zelthos, a student asked quietly, do you think we could do what the humans did? If someone came to conquer us, Zelthos smiled sadly, I hope you never have to find out. But if you do, remember what the humans taught us, that freedom is always worth fighting for, that the cost of submission is higher than the cost of resistance, and that sometimes the most powerful weapon is simply refusing to give up. Across the galaxy, the human doctrine had spread, not through conquest, not through force, but through example. Dozens of species now built their defenses around human principles, redundancy, determination, the willingness to pay the price. The age of easy conquest was over. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and somewhere on Earth an old woman looked up at the stars and smiled. Elena Vasquez was 93 years old now. Most of her crew was gone, but their legacy lived on, in every species that chose to stand rather than kneel, in every defensive fleet built on human principles, in every young person who learned that courage and determination could change the universe. The Indomitable still hung in orbit, silent, scarred, but never forgotten. It was a reminder that sometimes the greatest victories are not won with overwhelming force, but with the simple refusal to lose. And that lesson, that one simple truth, had rewritten the rules of the galaxy forever. Victory was no longer measured by how easily you won. It was measured by what you were willing to pay for it. And humanity had taught the universe that some things were worth any price. Freedom, dignity, the right to exist on your own terms. Those were the things the Indomitable had fought for. Those were the things 40,000 humans had died for. And those were the things that could never be taken by force, only surrendered. Humanity had refused to surrender, and in that refusal they had changed everything.